Good evening, and you're very welcome to episode 9 of this season of the League of Ireland Women's Premier Division show here on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breifne Earley, and of course, as always, Aaron Clarke joins me for a look back at what was an interesting start to the Avenir Sports All-Island Cup. That in itself,
is it the Avenir Sports?
There's a distinct lack of name in all of the FAI output this week, but LOI TV interestingly had Avenir Sports on some of the games, and I definitely saw it in one. It's the only one I noticed it on. So it's the All-Island Cup. It's obviously the top 16 sides in the country, north and south of the border, 12 from the Republic, 4 from Northern Ireland, and some fairly interesting games, a couple of controversial calls. Maybe we see a couple of red cards creeping in. We'll be talking about suspensions a bit later on as well, Aaron, because there's an interesting, we're not quite sure what's happening with one particular player's involvement at the weekend. We reckon there was a question mark about whether she was eligible or not. We've done a bit of research, and we've heard different things from different people, so we're not quite sure what the lie of the land is. But overall, fairly positive weekend for most teams that were taking part in it. Games kind of went as expected, with the exception maybe of the opening game, and that's probably where we'll start, Aaron. When we do get into the football, Athlone not happy about the result at the weekend. Friday night saw them go down at 1-0 to Glentoran in a fairly tetchy, contentious game by all sounds of things. The only one we didn't get to see, of course, because it was the only one that wasn't on LOI TV over the weekend.
You know what? It's the one game where you sort of think Friday night, lovely, bit of League of Ireland, bit of women's football Friday, and then when you see it coming out last Wednesday, it'd be the only game not going to be streamed. And of course, it's the one game to have that bit of a controversy. Like we were chatting over the weekend, and we were you were reading bits of the Belfast Telegraph as well, and sort of when they were talking about Hazel Donegan being through on goal and potentially being tripped and Maddie Gibson being sent off. The biggest thing I think to take away from this game from Athlone is, yes, they lost at 1-0. Gibson sent off and Kelly Brady sent off, and you can even see with how much of a tetchy affair it was that even Colin Fortune booked as well. As like, you don't tend to see a lot of red cards from that Athlone side since they come into the league. You haven't seen very many, and to see 2 players sent off in the one night, a bit surprising. Yeah. Is the result as surprising? Because I know you'd said to me about Wilson, about Emily Wilson, sort of her being a prolific goal scorer.
Yeah, something like 60 goals in 80 games over the last couple of seasons. Like she's well established as a goal scorer in the league in the north. I was talking about, I suppose, what we were chatting off air about last week was why nobody has gone in for her from outside. Like she's obviously played at double figures times for the north as well. She's got a goal or 2 for the north, but she's still at Glentoran, and it's impressive in terms of her record. And of course, she was the goal scorer at the weekend.
Yeah, like it's the sort of thing where for a long time, our league has probably been crying out for natural goal scorers. We haven't really seen it since the likes of Amber Barrett, even Rihanna Jarrett in her heyday when she was scoring 20, Áine O'Gorman a couple of years ago. We haven't seen it in the last couple of years where you look at the Golden Boot winners.
Áine O'Gorman a couple of years ago. Where were you at the weekend?
No. We'll talk about that, because do you know what?
We've given her a bit of grief for the last couple of weeks.
I'm going to give her a lot of credit later on today, because that game I want to savour, because there's some good, some bad, and some things that I don't think DLR will be too pleased with. But we'll get to that game, because there was a lot of things I really enjoyed about Áine O'Gorman's performance and that. But like, we haven't seen someone hitting 20 goals in quite a while in our league, and like it's difficult to say, a standout striker. I think we've got a couple of this year with the likes of our Kelly Brady, with the likes of Mackenzie Anthony, Kate Mooney again scoring. Like we could have this year probably 4 or 5 players who could easily reach double digits. And I think if we're going to get someone to get 20, I think it's possible this year. I know I said at the start of the season I thought Mooney would get 18.
Ellen Molloy got a hat-trick at the weekend, and she's had a couple in the league this year as well. So also worth a mention.
She's not even a striker. That's the funny thing about it. Like,
do you know who actually impressed me? And we'll come back to the games in a few minutes, but Joy Ralph, I thought she was involved in absolutely everything that the Rovers did. She scored 2. She scored 2. I think she got 2 or 3 assists. I was very impressed.
I'm going to bring that up later on when I was going to talk about Áine, because the 2 of them were just scintillating.
Absolutely.
Even the 1-2 that she plays with Áine for the last goal. And like, you have to think about it. Like, Joy's been out of the Rovers team a little bit in the last couple of weeks, hadn't started every game. But she made sure that Collie O'Neill knew what she's about. And but it just goes to show, like, even players playing underage for Ireland and stuff like that get that bit of confidence. And it's mad when you think about it. Like, she's the sort of player who you would have thought could go one way or another. Emma Doherty's. We're having that conversation this year about players who maybe had not a bad year last year, had a decent second half of the year last year. Didn't have a good first half of the year, but a lot of these players have started off great. And the best thing about it is when it comes to things like Team of the Week, Player of the Month, there's more and more people actually putting their name up and saying, I should be in there.
100%. Really, really impressed. She made her debut this weekend. We've talked about her a bit because she was subject of transfer over the winter. Maeve Walmer seemed to be really impressive. I know the commentary team in the Shells game gave her player of the match. I didn't watch enough of the game to really pass judgment, but she got down the left-hand side a couple of times, swung in some really nice crosses, scored. One of her crosses led to a goal as well. I can't remember quite who it was for on the Shell side, but maybe Rachel. Well, no, I can't remember. But impressive. She really, really impressed me, and I thought she's a youngster coming through. But there was a couple of youngsters. Emily Fitzgerald in Galway, I thought, had a good weekend as well. She took her goal really well. And there was a few others. Ante Aguevo, we haven't seen enough from her in recent years, purely because she just hasn't had a chance at Peamount. Took her goal exceptionally well at the weekend as well. And Kate Thompson came up with an absolute screamer for the winner in against Cliftonville for Galway. And I like 95 minutes game on the blow. Commentary team saying how Cliftonville would be happy to leave with the draw, and then bang, didn't quite work out for her. But interesting weekend all told. I love this competition. I really enjoy this competition. It's still not going the way for the northern teams, despite Glentoran winning. Let's maybe take a look at. We'll stay in that group for a second, and let's look at Waterford and Treaty. Probably the least interesting game of the weekend. We kind of talked about how it had the potential to kind of ignite with these two sides on a bit of a level. Decent enough performances in both teams. Never quite got going. 0-0, kind of uneventful, really.
The thing about it, both of them sort of played strong enough teams as well. And the question was, would they make changes? And like we'd sort of had a conversation after they played at the start of the season, being like, you saw a lot out of Waterford and how much they come on for that game. Granted, they've had a couple of results that haven't really gone their way, but when you look at it from a viewpoint, like, I think Waterford will definitely be a lot happier of the two sides. But it's a competition where you could easily potentially draw two or draw all three games and even get out of group depending on how results go. I don't think either manager will be extremely too displeased with the fact that a draw. Yes, it wasn't the most eventful game of football, but the first game, apart from a couple of moments of magic in the first game they played earlier on the season, there wasn't a lot between them. So I wasn't really surprised to see a lot between them again in the weekend.
The way that group, I'll just pop the league table up there for a second, but the way that group table is looking at the moment, Glentoran lead 3 points, Athlone at the bottom with nil. Obviously, those two teams, they play the teams top and bottom who would be ranked higher than them in most people's opinions on recent seasons. It's hard to see a route for both Treaty and Waterford to compete. Like, they'd be expected to lose to Athlone, which really puts them under pressure to get out of that group now.
So the problem is, Treaty's big problem here in this situation is the fact that they have Athlone next, where both sides sort of know a bad result isn't really an option, because if Treaty lose against Athlone, all of a sudden they go into the last day having to beat Glentoran and relying on Waterford to do them a favour. So, like, although they have lost the game, Athlone are still in terms of the pecking order in that group, Athlone are still in a really good position, to the fact that you wouldn't be surprised if Treaty beat Glentoran, but the fact that they're playing them on the last weekend, Glentoran mightn't have anything to play for if they beat Waterford, and then all of a sudden they're through, and it's one of them that you sort of look at it and say, it's a real massive advantage for Glentoran having gotten that win, knowing that they've Waterford next. And I think for Waterford, they'll look at this competition as more experience, more opportunities to play games together, because let's call a spade a spade. They shouldn't have won the sort of games that they've won this year coming into a new team into the league. It should take a lot longer for a team to settle, and they'd have to be really happy where they've settled. And the more games they play together, they're only going to get better. And I think Waterford will really use this competition and sort of use it as a springboard to see how how much further they can push on the league. But I'd still expect Athlone and Glentoran to probably come out of this group the way the first round of results have come through.
Yeah, looking at Group C, Peamount and Galway lead. Good wins for both sides at the weekend against Cork City and Cliftonville, respectively. Cork won't be happy with some of the defending in particular. Maybe let's start in Terryland Park or Eamon Park. Repeat of the original final from 2 seasons ago. Similar scoreline in terms of a 1-goal win for Galway United, but they left it late. A 95th minute winner for Kate Thompson, who just came on to a lovely ball and just buried it into the back, and that really gave the goalkeeper from Cliftonville no chance. But yeah, poor start. They're 1 goal down after 10 minutes when they really got cut open fairly easily down the left-hand side.
It was a real back to the front type of goal, and when the ball flying across the box, there's no way they're missing that. And when they go 1 down, you're sort of thinking, okay, game on, interesting. And to their credit, the goal they scored. My only question about the first goal that Galway scored is, should the defender have probably done better? Because for me, should she really be getting the shot off there in that sort of situation? Fitzgerald
half missed it as well. It wasn't even a clean strike. It just kind of bobbled into the far side of the goal. But you'll take them however they come. But Galway looked to just edge it and probably deserved it. If someone was going to win it, they probably deserved to.
The interesting thing on that, like if you look at that Galway team, like he's made quite a couple of changes. He's decided that he was going to use this as an opportunity to give some players some game times, like the likes of Mullins, Callanan, Nick's only didn't play the last one. Fitzgerald, like he's given players opportunities to play, and I think that's what Phil has sort of identified, that if they're going to win this competition again, it's not going to be a case that he's going to have to rely on the starting 11, because it's a difficult time with the fact that the games are so spread out and mixing in with league games. So like the fact that he changed it up, and then like even some of the subs bringing on like Lucy Jane Grant, like Rachel Kearns probably hasn't played as much as we probably expected. Emma Duffy, like he's brought on players, but his team have given him the reaction that he would have wanted, and I think to win that he'll be pleased having won so late. But the interesting thing when it comes to Galway is, I was having a little bit of a look before the game, and the amount of games that Galway have scored goals 80 minutes plus this season, they've scored them quite a lot. Granted, they dropped the point against Wexford when both sides scored late, but there's been other games where they've scored late as well and gone on to get winners late. And I think it's a testament to their fitness as well, and the fact that they've been able to do that, and it's not as reliant as, because the easy option there is just to see the game out and take the draw.
Yeah. But they came looking for that winner, and they got it, to be fair. So they sit second in that group, but the team you probably would argue is probably the happiest of the weekend's results in that group is Peamount. Went down to Cork. Can be a challenge to break Cork down, particularly this year. They look much more solid than they have in recent seasons. Didn't take too long. Ante Aguebo opened the score just before half time, and to be honest, never really looked like they were going to lose it from there. I think Peamount just kind of, now it took them a while, only the last 10 minutes when they kind of pulled ahead again. 1 goal. Ruby Gallagher scored a great goal in 10 minutes to go, and then Mia McGonnell with the last minute, I suppose, icing on the cake, but opportunist. But they're not going to be happy with how they defended. Great effort from Ruby Gallagher.
First and third goal, I think they'll be extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
Like you look at the first goal, the ball over from the right to the left, gets away before, probably could have been cleared there, and then even when it slipped into Cuvo, she still has a bit to do there, and like it was a nice finish. But when you're looking from a Galway viewpoint, you're probably thinking, a Cork viewpoint, you're thinking after shipping 7 against Shells a week previous to ship a goal like that, they'll be disappointed. I took one note off that Ruby Gallagher goal. Becky Watkins in the build-up.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
I thought she was brilliant in the build-up, and I was nearly thinking to myself, I was like, Ruby Gallagher, you're nearly robbing her goal, nearly robbing her effort, because Becky might have had a shot herself, but the way Gallagher just come onto that and just struck it, like what a finish, absolutely unbelievable finish. And then like the last one, if you're Cork, you want to turn the camera off before you even see it. It's so many attempts to get it cleared, and they just didn't.
To be fair, I don't know. Like, it was a great run from Becky Watkins. She gets past the Cork defenders real easy. I don't know if she gets the same power or the same accuracy running diagonally away from the goal.
Oh, no, she doesn't.
Yeah. So I think, and the finish from Ruby Gallagher is just like sublime. You shouldn't be beaten at the near post from the goalkeeper's point of view. That's kind of an old adage to every keeper. Here's the first day you pick up a pair of gloves. But the finish was just so powerful and so precise that I don't know if the keeper's saving that, even if she kind of covers that post successfully.
Like, two of the Paymount goals come from players that come off the bench. M. McGonnell and Gallagher. Two of them come off the bench. I think young Gallagher's on. I don't even know if she's only 16, 17, if even. One of them players coming through their underage systems. And the only one thing I would remark off this game, Breifne, just from sort of looking at FAI Connect, Cork have 6 subs, Cork have 5 subs, Peamount have 6 subs. Team struggling to fill their bench again this weekend. That's the only thing that I would sort of reflect on and be like, it's a little bit of a concern. But I think Frank Callaghan sort of want to put these 2 games behind them and see how they can break that sort of duck, because conceding 10 goals in 2 games, I don't think he'd be too happy with the defence.
Yeah, this is how the league table looks at the end of that particular round of games. Pease lead from Galway with Cliftonville, who are probably the team most likely to challenge the top 2. Cork, it seems like even already with the 3 goals minus on the goal difference, that could be a challenge for Cork to get out of there. Not impossible. They have been well able to get results, but they do face Galway and Cliftonville, both who have decent pedigree in
Peamount and Galway next in that group, which will be
yeah. Well, the winner guarantees a quarterfinal, which is huge for them as well. Well, not guarantees, but virtually guarantees a quarterfinal. Like, it'll take a huge amount of luck to miss out on that stage. Group B, we'll keep going through the groups in reverse order as we can. DLR, as you're probably going to see, and DLR and Lisburn, I think they're probably out of the competition already. And I know that sounds a bit rough, but Shamrock Rovers 6-0 winners against DLR, Wexford 5-0 winners away to Lisburn. I can't see the 2 teams coming back, winning 2 games or winning 4 and getting an overturning the goal difference. It just seems like that group is done. Like,
there's one thing I noted down coming into today, and it was, how do DLR break the rot? And considering they're running league games with the likes of Shamrock Rovers, Bows, Cork to come in the league, you could do it potentially in one of the latter 2 games. That game against Lisburn next in the All-Island Cup is a potential real opportunity for them to break that. Because if you look at them, it must be difficult for DLR, because they just haven't been able to sort of compete with the teams this season. And like, normally you would see DLR being competitive for a lot of the game and maybe at the end of it sort of tailing off, but they were just cut apart at times in this game. Like, you look at the first goal in particular, like, it's a really good show of strength from Áine to sort of hold the defender off and show us what Áine of old used to do. Áine with a bit of confidence. Like, it was a really, really nice finish. And like, even when one of the other things I noted for like her setup for Joy Ralph for Joy's first goal. What a pass! What a ball to from Áine to, and then you're even looking the Ella Kelly goal. How does she get that much space? And it's at that stage, if you're a DLR player, you're probably just frustrated. The game has gone away from them, and the Rovers just sort of took over. They really took over, and they put a stamp on it for me.
To ask your own question back, how do DLR fix this? Because the next 2 league games look on paper to be quite foreboding. Then you got Cork and Sligo, who are within touch and distance on the league table, not exactly having stellar seasons themselves. Can they get a result there? Are they likely to get a result there?
Like, I would say to you right now, if you were to ask me to pick a winner based off of how the teams have gone this season, I'm probably going to pick both Cork and Sligo to get results against them. And how do you break the knot? I don't know is the question. And like, you've looked at the sort of way they've played this season. They were good in patches against Athlone in the league in the first half. Second half, Athlone took over. Like, there's a lot of young players there. Yes, there are some players who have experience with the likes of Ethan Dan and Jess Gleeson. Like, then you've got the likes of Naaman Agassi coming back. And Agassi's massive for them. Like, it's just a case of other teams being able to massively strengthen, and DLR haven't. And a lot of it's down to resources and finances and stuff like that. And it's difficult for the likes of DLR to compete. And this is probably the first year where we've really started to see them being tailed off. And it's not nice. It's not nice to see, because you know how hard they're working and how much they're trying to push it. But like, just how easy Rovers cut them apart, how easy they've been cut apart a couple of times this season. Like, it's difficult to see them stopping that rot. Maybe it's a case of, can they get into the stage of where they can cut it down to, maybe they can, if they lose 1-0 in the game, then can they? I don't think it's a case of, can we expect wins just to come from DLR? And I don't say that trying to be disrespectful to DLR, because some of the people behind in the club in DLR I really like and I really get on with, and it's not nice to see. But unfortunately, games like this, they're just a lot further behind. I think even if you look at that Rovers team, like, Rovers played some of the kids in that sort of game. The likes of Ella Kelly starting, Katie O'Reilly starting, players who have a point to prove. Young Comiskey starting, players who have a bit of a point to prove. Like, between Anya and Joy Ralph, they scored 5 goals and 4 assists between the two of them. Like, they just ran the show. And then you think from a point of view, they've got Melissa O'Kane, Emily Corbett, Aoife Brophy, players like that they can still bring off the bench. Like, it's hard to understand how DLR are going to change, and I hope they can do something, because like, they've had some good moments in this league, but finances is something that's really probably telling this season from a Wales viewpoint, and the fact that they play Rovers again in the league this week is tough for them.
It's rough. Yeah, it's rough. Let's talk Wexford for a moment, and you can't talk about the game at the weekend without talking about Ellen Molloy. Absolute cracking performance from her. Hat-trick, penalty after a handful of minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. I was particularly impressed with the third one, not convinced it crossed the line. Bit of a training ground set piece with herself and Becky Casson. Worth checking out on LOI TV. There's no highlights packages this week, so we had to troll through all the games to get the highlights ourselves. But
should the goalkeeper be beaten at their postal?
Oh God, no, absolutely not. I think there was a suspicion of offside, but you can't see the goal mouth, so you don't know if there's someone on the post that hasn't come off it. But the
second goal for me is frustrating.
Yeah, it's a corner.
Where the camera, not even that, where the camera's pointing into the grass and literally the ball's in the box.
I wasn't going to mention it.
I was, because I seen it. But the thing is, Breifne, you can nearly just stop this recording right now. Go back to last week's show. Clip what I said about Wexford. Because all I said is it was the Ellen Molloy show.
Yeah.
She's literally done the same thing. She's literally done the same thing again. And I'm going to say it again. I said it last week. If she's not in the Ireland squad at the end of the month, I'll be extremely disappointed, because
talking about players, and I've already mentioned her, but talking about players who had a huge impact in this game, I thought Becky Casson had a great performance. I didn't watch the full game just because there's too many games this weekend. It was hectic, but looking back through the highlights, and particularly the goals, the delivery from the corner for Aoife Kelly's header, which was phenomenal as well. Again, keepers should do better. It's straight at her, right through her hands, but the Wexford input there, the delivery is phenomenal, right on her head, on the edge of the 6-yard box. She buries it. Like, a keeper probably not saving it, just purely on the power. Very impressed with the two of them. I sent them to you all. I'm not sure if you've watched it.
I sent them. I'll say something to you now, right? And it's been reported on another podcast, and I sort of did have it confirmed to me. When Wexford signed her, she wasn't a free agent. That's how much Wexford felt they needed to go and sign her. She was still under contract with Shamrock Rovers. So Wexford felt they needed to go and sign her. And she's been a massive addition to the squad this year. And like, the biggest thing I'd said to you in the last couple of weeks was Wexford lacked consistency. You can really see how much they're starting to play the style of football that Shelbourne wants to play. And to me, with them playing that style of football, they're only going to get better if they can keep everybody fit. And like, some of the movements, you talked about Casson. At one stage, she just nearly turns on a swivel and plays a pass. Like, they haven't necessarily had that sort of things the last year or so. You look at, for me, I thought Della Doherty. There was times where she was getting forward. I thought she was very good, and I think she's considering where she's come from with the injury. Like, I'm now starting to think my putting Wexford third in my predictions wasn't a massive mistake. I'm starting to think that it is a real possibility.
They're looking well, and what I like about Wexford, you could probably replicate this about half the teams in the league that I watched this weekend. The youngsters are getting the opportunity in the Avenir Sports Cup, and they've really stood up and be counted. And I was superly impressed with Charlotte Cromack again. Great ball for the first one down the line. She finds Liam McGrath. McGrath cuts in, gets absolutely minced out of it for the penalty after just 5 minutes. But it was a lovely team move. About 5 or 6 Wexford players touched that ball from the throw in on the far side, right across the back. Ball clipped over to Cromack. Lovely first touch. Gets it down the line to McGrath. Takes on the defender, and not scared to take on the defender either, and gets bundled over in the box. And I thought she was impressive. Freda Monge, again, didn't see much of her just purely because I didn't watch enough of the game at the weekend. But she's one that's come highly recommended for a few years. I know she had a bit of a spell in Cork, I think, last year. Has come back to Wexford. Becky Casson again went to Cork. Went across to, I'm going to say Casemiro, but that could be wrong in terms of the pronunciation. But went to Spain. It went to Spain and came back. And I think we're seeing a really good young Wexford team, because that team has been dominated in recent years by a couple of really experienced heads. Like, you've got.
One thing that I found interesting in this?
Nicola, it's looking like a very different team this year. And not necessarily bad or worse, but they really have the engines firing.
Like one of the things I found interesting with them is the fact that, like, even when you talk about the penalty incident, she could have gone down the first time there was a little bit of contact. Probably doesn't get the penalty, and then there was the second one. But like, you're looking at these sort of players. Like Siobhan Murder for me has been superb since coming in this year. Like young Leah McGrath, she's what? I think she's 17. She's not even 18 yet. Took the number 9 jersey this year.
Yeah. I love it.
And has just sort of been like, yeah, I'm going to take this. I'm going to go and I'm going to do what I need to do. Young Millie Daly has been someone else who sort of, a lot of people have been talked about, had a lot of injuries. Like, there are a lot of young players there, but there's some really good young players. And I think the one thing about the likes of that coaching staff is that while some of them, without naming names, will sort of get opinions because of what people see when things don't go well on the sideline, then the sort of coaches, though, when you actually watch them coaching, that will pull a player to the side and actually walk them through the step by step and show them what way they want to implement it. And I think a lot of these Wexford players will take an awful lot from that sort of approach that's being done. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Wexford sort of go on a bit of a run now. And like, before they play Shells, they've two very winnable games against Waterford and Cork before they play Shells in the league. And by the time they play Shells in the league, that'll sort of make it into a bit of a mouth-watering clash.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look down through the list here. Becky Caston's 28, Lauren Dwyer's 28, Orla Conlon's 27, and everybody else is a couple of years younger than that. Like, so it's the first time I can see in a long, long time where one of those three that I mentioned, Edel Kennedy, Kylie Murphy, or Nicola Sinnott, has not featured in a Wexford team. It's probably the first time since the club was founded that one of those three didn't feature. And I think that's important, that lacking that leadership, even off the bench, going out and beating a team. Okay, Lisburn are probably not good enough to compete at this level, and the results will back that up over the last few years. I think they'd probably be in danger of maybe pulling a Mid-Ulster or Science Swift.
I must ask the question. Ciara Rossler hasn't played the last couple of games. I must try and figure out what's going on with Rossi. Like, there's someone else with a lot of experience, hasn't been involved the last three. Just looking back, like, could even be more.
But if I said to you that a Wexford team without those 4 players was going to be this dominant in the game at this level, you kind of would have said, I don't see where that's coming from.
Yeah, but
really, really exciting.
The other side of it is, though, is because of the younger players who've been there from a very young age, like your Orla Collins, your Lauren Dwyers, they've changed the age profile over the last year or so without actually changing the sort of identity of Wexford as the club. And I think that's probably an important thing as well. And they're getting the results now. They're starting to get the results now, and I think they could go on a run and pick up a couple of good wins. Yeah, and makes that Shells game in 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, very interesting.
Absolutely. Here is the draw of the group of Group B. Shamrock Rovers and Wexford, as we said, lead that. Hard to see them being pulled back in by either Lisbon or DLO, unless something drastic happens in terms of the performances of both those sides. Just a rough season for both teams at the moment. Let's finally look at Group A. And of course, we had 2 games here. Bows made the trip down to Sligo in a repeat of the opening day of the season, where they had what turned out to be Sligo's only point so far, and they repeated it 1-1 this time, 0-0 I think the last time, but 1-1. Sligo will be happy to have got out of jail. A poor own goal to give away. Just a corner came in, and Kate Nugent just went to head it, and just kind of slid off the side of her head and into the back of the net. Nothing really that Amber Hardy could do in the Sligo goal.
Breeze for that goal. Because I watched it a couple of times, and I'm watching the corner flag, how violently it's blowing into that goal. I think any touch off any player, and that was probably going into the back of the net. But the biggest thing for me is they reacted.
Yeah,
I thought Rachel McGoldrick's header. It's a lovely header from close range. She gives Rachel Kelly no chance. But the biggest reflection I have off this is it's both coming down to the showgrounds and not getting a result, not getting a win twice in a row. I'd say it is a positive result for Sligo. I'd say it's probably the result that Sligo desperately needed at this stage, just to sort of turn that monotony a little bit around. And I think if you're Steve Feeney, you're walking away from that being right. There's an opportunity. Because how do we go and back this up? How do we go and sort of see, can we get a result in any of their next games? They're not easy. The next 3 league games are absolutely brutal with Peamount, Shamrock Rovers, and Athlone Town. But you have to start somewhere. And if you're Sligo Rovers, I think they'll take an awful lot from that game, especially the fact that they've shown that it wasn't just a one-off against Bows. And if you're Alvin Heisey, you're probably looking back at that video asking the question, it's twice this season. How do I stop Sligo being the bogey team? Because the last couple of years, I think, when Bows are playing Sligo, they've never had it their own way. Never.
Yeah. It's a rough one, but I think from a Sligo point of view, you go behind, particularly in the manner they did so early on in the game, and you could see a team in their position with their track record this season just not get themselves back into it. But to get back in level terms, 10 minutes later, great delivery from Hansbury from the corner, and as you said, a great finish from McGoldrick from close enough range, and really gave Rachel Kelly no chance. So good to see Sligo back.
That's where you get confidence. That's where you get confidence from, coming back from behind.
Yeah.
When
it
you
feels
haven't
like
done
a game.
it well.
It feels like a game you've won, kind of you've pulled it back. A draw kind of sometimes feels like a win at times. Final game in that group, and this is probably ominous for a lot of teams in the league. If you're looking at performances, Shells played a relatively changed side and came out against a team that would have been fancied to maybe give them a decent game, and beat them fairly, very well in terms of some of the performances that came. Some of the youngsters that got opportunities for Shells at the weekend, 5-1 winners. Goals from Devereux, who had a great finish for her goal. Mackenzie Anthony with a decent one. Maeve Wallimer, as you said, had a lovely goal in there as well. And Kate Mooney with 2 as she came on the second half sub. Shells rested a lot of players and still had enough to put a decent Linfield side to the sword.
They'll probably be extremely annoyed with the goal they conceded. Defensively, it was very, very poor from Shells, and Clarke hit. It was an okay finish, but the one note I took from Rebecca Devereux,
it was a better than okay finish. Took a lovely touch around.
It was a superb finish.
Yeah.
The one thing I took from the Rebecca Devereux goal is Rebecca Devereux should not be scoring that goal. She should never be allowed to score that goal. The work that she's had to do to score that goal, I think, deserves an awful lot of credit, an awful lot of, the run in itself was very, very good. And then she when she jinxes and finishes, she should not be scoring that goal. Never. But that's a sign of quality. The biggest thing when it comes to Devereux is Devereux struggled the last 2 years with injuries. Barely hasn't played very much football. Probably should have played an awful lot more football and hasn't. And when you look at that from her viewpoint, I think she's been very, very good for Shells, and I think it's a massive boost for even the Shells second goal. She's involved again with the run before we move on to
the first goal. Should the keeper have done better for Devereux, because it's kind of gone through the keeper, straight down the middle of the goal?
Yes, but you got to give her the credit for the actual work rate and effort she played. I'm just looking here at stats, right? So if you look at take away the All-Island Cup, last year over the course of 13 games, she was involved in last year. Rebecca Devereux played 457 minutes for Shells. Across 6 games this season, she's already played 220 minutes. And she's involved in all 20. I wouldn't be surprised if she triples that number she's currently on. And like it was a nice finish, a nice assist. I think
the average is about right. The average is still about the same.
But she's starting more games this year, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. She did get the assist that you're about to mention for Mackenzie Anthony. Talk us through that.
Yeah, it was a nice finish. For me, the one goal that you're looking from it is the third goal. It's a bit of a right place, right time for a close range finish. But the fourth goal is probably the pick of the goals from Shells, from the edge of the box, curled into the corner, and then fifth goal's not bad either from Kate Mooney. Or two goals are very good. Like if you're on Wirren, you've played 3 games, you've scored 19 goals, conceded 3 goals. Like you've got to be happy with the last 2 weeks of work.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree with that. It's been an interesting couple of weeks for Shells, but they've really gone on a run. And I spoke to someone, I won't name what club or who they were, but someone involved with a team outside of Shelbourne, and I think they're the team they're most fearful of this year.
So apart from Shamrock Rovers on the opening day of the season, they lost 2-1. They've won every other game this season, and they've scored. Team out was the only goal they didn't score more than 4 goals in.
Yeah, it's the 24 goals in 6 games is massive. Like, do you know what I mean? And then they put 5 more past Linfield at the weekend. They look like they're having fun as well. Like they're actually fun to watch, but they look like they're actually enjoying themselves as well, which is kind of nice. It is unfortunate that we can't show you the goals. They're not on YouTube, so you haven't seen the highlights. You have to go through the games, which, let's be honest, 99% of people are not going to bother doing. I think it's important that these games, hopefully we're recording this on Monday night, so hopefully the highlights do come out, but the FAI have been so on top of that this year. It's one of the things I've really been impressed with this year in terms of how quickly the highlights have been coming out for the men's and women's games. So I would have expected them to be out by now if they were going to be out, if that makes sense, which in itself is a huge plus, I suppose, for the steps that the FAI continue to make and the League of Ireland continue to make in terms of promoting these games.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully, if they don't go out, hopefully come Saturday, they get back to normal and we see highlights out very quickly.
Yeah, well, I think the league is probably just a different situation, and maybe it's down to that thing we talked at the top of the show in terms of the sponsorship. Is the sponsorship active? Is there an actual sponsor who's kind of supporting that work and making sure that work is possible? We'll take a quick look again at the Group A. Shells lead Bows and Sligo.
Just before we do this, I think we have to broach it. The subject of potential suspensions.
Let me explain. We talked about this last week. You brought it to my attention last Thursday or Friday, and basically it was along the lines of Shells have only had one keeper for nearly every game so far this year. Obviously, we all know Amanda McQuillan is their first choice goalkeeper. Their sub keeper, Courtney Maguire, has been injured, has been involved. I know she was in the photo shoot on the photos after the President's Cup.
She's close to being back.
Yeah, she's nearly back. But Shells have kind of gambled on the fact that they trust Amanda and that they're to just keep it as a one keeper squad up to now. They've been a bit shy on that. Amanda was sent off in the semi-final after the final whistle. She was sent off. We believe for verbals, but we're not quite sure. But definitely sent off in the semi-final of this competition.
There was an altercation. There was an altercation with the referee after the final whistle.
Yeah, and our understanding is if you get sent off in this competition, you miss the next game in that competition, plus potentially more if the disciplinary committees make that decision. So we're not sure what the rule is in this respect, because our understanding would be that she wouldn't be eligible to play. We were questioning who would play in goals for Shells. She played full 90 minutes. We've heard different things from different people. Speaking to a few people in and around the league this week, and I've heard different things, and you've heard contrary reports as well in terms of whether she should or shouldn't have been playing, whether she should or shouldn't have been suspended. We don't know is the short answer, but it's definitely a discussion point because we've seen other players miss out on the first game in their new club because they got sent off in that competition before they went to England 6 years ago. We've seen that in the past, so we're just a little bit confused. Is that fair?
Yeah, and you sort of wish the FAI did is that the FAI actually issued suspension lists for women. They don't tend to do it very often, and if they had that, it would sort of like the question is were the club notified? What was the process even said to the club? And it's not a case of saying Shells are in the wrong here, because Shells are probably being questioning this, asking questions themselves, because there's no real suspension. It's like when it comes to that, where your initial thought was if that competition is over, is she going to serve a ban in the next league game? She didn't. She played the next league game, and it's one of them that it's confusing for us, and it's the sort of thing that we don't want to talk about. But if we're going to cover this league, you sort of have to mention it. Likewise, the unsavoury scenes in the Oval on Friday evening when Maddie Gibson's red card for when Hazel Donegan was supposedly true on goal for not being happy with the decision. Like these referees, there is cards, but like how does that impact the likes of the Athlone suspensions if a player is sent off and then is able to play the next game? How does that impact the other clubs in this competition? And like, I feel sorry for the player, because if it turns out that the FAI turn around and say she shouldn't have been able to play, and I know from speaking to people, I know one club have sort of broached the question. I don't know whether they broached it officially or just unofficially. So what's gonna happen going forward is interesting and one to keep an eye on. Do I still think it?
Sorry, you have to assume that the two girls from Athlone will serve a suspension in the next round of this competition, because that's how these competitions work across the world, not just in Ireland. And the question I have is, why is that different to a player getting sent off in their last involvement in the competition last year? This is the first opportunity to serve that suspension in this competition. One person I spoke to suggested that the rules, and we haven't seen this in writing, but that the rules, if you're out of the competition, you serve the suspension in your domestic league. We've checked, she played every game after that competition in the domestic league. So no suspension, we believe. And again, this is all, we're not saying Shells have done anything wrong.
The only other thing is, though, has the red card been overturned? And this is where the FAI have sort of left it open to interpretations.
Yeah, but it's still on FAI Connect, which is the official record of the game. It's still on FAI Connect as a red card after the final whistle last year against Shamrock Rovers in that semi-final. So again, we're just going on the information available to us. We will check with the club and see if there's any update to that. And like you said, we get no joy out of this. We really don't enjoy having these conversations. But if we're going to talk about the league, and I saw somebody in ladies Gaelic football this week talking about the lack of genuine, constructive discussion around the games. It was all kind of very frilly and all very like, oh, aren't they great to play? And it's all PR and it's all positive. But you can't have real. Could you imagine if that happened in the Premier League or even in the League of Ireland? Like if everything was like going, oh yeah, let's not criticize the referees, let's not criticize players, let's not criticize the club or the league when they make a mistake. For us to be realistic commentary on the league, we have to take the very few bad things, but we have to spend a bit of time talking about them as well. We much prefer talking about some absolutely amazing goals or some great plays or passes or whatever it might be. That's what we want to talk about. But unfortunately, every now and again, something creeps up like this. But I think there should be clarification on it. I wouldn't like to see a team, particularly when you've won the game 5-1 and it's such a good performance. I wouldn't like to see a team punished for it. But like, you have to have consistency, and people need to know where they stand. And the fact that so many different people in the league this week don't know where people stand. If that's the case, like, can you get sent off when you're losing in the third round or you get knocked out in a quarterfinal? Can you just do what you want and not have any repercussion for it? Because I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but it all just seems a bit crazy to me.
Yeah, hopefully somebody will come out and sort of clarify what's going on, because
chances
you wouldn't want to see them after that performance losing because they were clinical again. Yeah. But no matter what, I still think Shell's on top of this group and top of company.
Yeah, I think so. Even if that game got overturned at this stage, I think I'd probably fancy them to still make it through that group. Bows and Sligo Rovers under pressure after they both failed to take points in that opening game. All right, so that's the Avenir Sports Cup done. Let's have a quick look at the league table ahead of this weekend's return to league action. And of course, we have first versus third on Saturday evening on TG Car. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Athlone and Galway. Athlone top of the table, and Galway, well, I suppose, effectively on a similar record. They've obviously played one game less. Their game was not played against Peamount a couple of weeks ago, but same record. Only 2 points dropped so far in the season. But they play on a Saturday evening. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Your thoughts? Let's start there. Maybe Athlone and Galway. These girls know each other so well. There's a load of players who've played for both teams.
Are you going to give me a prediction on it as well?
Oh, really? You're going to make me? Going to put me on? I think it's going to be a TG Car always gets the goals, and Galway, for whatever reason, always seem, maybe it's the Irish language, but Galway always seem to perform really, really well when they're on TG Car. So I'm going to go for, it's going to be 2-1 or 2-2. I'm going to go 2-1 for Galway. I think at home they'll have a big crowd, a bit of publicity around it with the game live on TV, and I think Galway, I'm going to go 2-1.
What would you say if I said I was going to go the other way?
I love it.
I've been impressed. I've been impressed with Athlone lately, and I can see Athlone putting in another stellar performance this weekend, and just being too strong for Galway in the end. Provided
the suspensions don't carry over into the league, because then if you were without Kerry Brand or without Kelly Brady and Maddie this week, then I fancy Galway. Of course.
No, it's funny. I don't think Kelly Brady is hit third gear yet. I really don't. And scary. From talking to people as well that I know, I don't think she's hit third gear yet. And I think she's going to be there or thereabouts this year for the Golden Boot. And it's probably, I think the winner could be at about 17, 18 goals this year.
Well, she's already on 6. So that will be interesting to see how that pans out. Herself and Mackenzie Anthony on 6. The other games, as we look forward to the weekend's action, let's start in chronological order. DLR and Shamrock Rovers, a repeat of last week's game. It's going to probably be a repeat of the performance too, unless Rovers come fairly lackadaisical and don't show up. But it's hard to see DLR get it.
I think Rovers need to show up, and I don't think Colin O'Neill will accept a sort of a drop off from last week's performance.
As we look down to the fixture list, it's those 3 teams at the bottom of the table with 3 big games ahead of them. Sligo Rovers host Peamount United. Treaty United host Shells in free scoring form, even Shells in the Marcus Field. Both those games kick off at 3:00. Is it hard to see anything but away wins here in both of these?
I would like to see Sligo be competitive. I'd like to see Sligo push Peamount. I think it all depends what Peamount show up. If the Peamount that played against Cork with that intensity show up, they beat Sligo comfortable enough. If they don't, I think Sligo can make it difficult for them. I hate saying this because I've been really impressed with them this year, but with the form that Shelbourne are on, I can't see Treaty getting anything out of that game.
But if they do, but bear in mind it's 4th at home to 2nd. Like, this is a top of the table clash. If Treaty could halt Shell's progress, how much of a success is that for them?
Huge. Massive. And the thing about it is we've seen over the years they've kept in there with Shells, but they've never really got a result against Shells. And if they could get that result, I think it would really set them upon. But the only concern is in them sort of tight games is it's just seeing off them last 15, 20 minutes with maybe a little bit of a lack of experience. And I just think that Shells team will be just too strong.
Yeah, Cork and Bows, they do battle in Turner's Cross at 5:00. 2 points between them in the league table. Bows with a chance to leapfrog Cork if they can do it. Cork have had a really good start to the league campaign. I know the weekend they'll be disappointed with the result against Peamount, but this would be Cork's to lose given the form of the last couple of weeks.
Bows should be winning this comfortably with the squad based on the squads that the 2 teams have. However, saying that and actually seeing it happen is 2 different things. The Bows against Shells, if that Bows shows up, they should win that game, but they haven't shown up enough times for me that I think they might squeak it, but I don't think it'll be as easy as a 2 or 3-0 win. I think if they are to win it, they might win it by a goal. But then again, you look at what happened last year. Cork beat them down there. I just think Cork's defence at the minute just needs to tighten up if they're to get a result.
Wexford versus Waterford, Southeast Derby, first one in the league. Big day for, I suppose, both of them in particular. They would have been looking at this on the day the fixtures came out. A lot of similarity in the dressing room. Like some Maeve Williams, Mia Lennon, a couple of others have come from Wexford to Waterford. Can you see Waterford pulling this off? It would be a bit of a shock if they did.
No, I just think Ellen Molloy, Cormac up top, the likes of Becky Castle, I just think they'll take control of this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Wexford win by a couple.
Okay, interesting times ahead. Let's take a quick look before we wrap up of the goals, top scorers chart at the moment. Kelly Brady and Mackenzie Anthony, as we talked about, both top of the table. Shell's dominating this, 6 goals, 5 goals, and 2 on 4. Emma Doherty sandwiched in there in a Shell sandwich, as Isabel Ficini from Treaty also picks up 4 goals for herself this season. There's a couple back on 3, Ellen Molloy, Corbett, Amber Cosgrove, Erin O'Brien. Charlotte Cromack is in there with 3 goals as well as Ruish Littlejohn. Still not to score and win in the same game. We're going to keep track of that as we go over the next couple of weeks. Loads of girls then on 2 through the season. Joy Ralph, she got 2 at the weekend, but of course they were in the Avenir Sports Cup, so 4 for her for the season so far. In terms of the goalkeepers' clean sheets, Amanda McQuillan top of the list, ahead of Lisa Toomey and Megan Pascoe. Rachel Kelly back on 3 goals.
I'd be interested, right? I know you can get the stats from me, and maybe I'll get it from you for next week. What year was the last year that a Shells player didn't win most clean sheets? I'd say we're probably talking 4 or 5 years at least.
I think yes and no. I think they were helped in 1 or 2 seasons by the fact that Peamount had a job share between Nisha and they played about 50% of the games, and they had together they had more clean sheets than Shells did. But you're right. I think Shells have dominated that for the last few years. Definitely 3, if not 4. So yeah, interesting.
Nice few of them awards from
I'll get that for you for next week. I'll get that for you for next week. It might take me a few days to pull that together. But listen, that is it for the week so far. It's been an interesting weekend of the All-Island Sports Cup. Sponsored or not sponsored by Avenir Sports, don't know. But we'll probably have that resolved by the next time we're back talking about that competition as well. But it's been a good week. Plenty to talk about. Some big games this weekend. Are you going to get to a game? Now the AIL is finished. I'm actually free on Saturday afternoons. I might get to a game.
My only option in the capital is DLR and Shamrock Rovers at the minute. I'm looking at a few options. I don't know. I'd love to take a trip out of the capital, but getting back from Galway could be a bit difficult. So I'll have a look. I will end up somewhere. I don't know where I'll end up just yet.
Hop on the train. Come down to Sligo. It's midday. It's 3:00. You can get back up on the train as well. It could be a podcast day out in the showgrounds. Aaron, listen, as always, an absolute pleasure. We'll be back with you again next week to talk all things League of Ireland, Women's Premier Division. Plenty to talk about, hopefully, for next week. Hopefully nothing negative. Let's try and keep it the positive this week, girls, if we can. Talk to you then.